Hi guys, what's up? So this is some Elric stories. This is the Eternal Champion story. This is actually the Runestaff series, but it's Eternal Champion, which is Elric. And this is a couple of comic books about Elric of Melnibone. This is a story called The Balance Lost, which is the most recent one I think that they made up. And they made it in comic book form, which is really cool because you get to look at like really cool art and really cool monsters and everything like that. And this is another one, and this is really good. This is a better quality one. Just like this is more of a thicker one, and this has really good art too. And it's a whole nother story also, like comics, and this is also an Elric story. And this is more than just a retelling of the Elric saga, like Elric of Melnibone and Sailor on the Seas of Fate, and all that saga. It's more of it's more than a retelling of that story, which they've done. They've retold the story with comic book form, which I think works really, really well with Elric. But the story is just so involved that like drawing it out is just gonna take forever, and it's really, really a long thing to do. So, but Elric is a really interesting character. And Michael Moorcock was this is like one of Michael Moorcock's like main characters. Like he's created this character called the Eternal Champion, which is someone who was like destined to fight and combat all of their life. They're just destined. Their whole life is just combat and fighting. And this is why that like these characters are so sad. Like they would call Elric is like called melancholy the whole time. He's always sad, and he's always like upset about stuff and things like that. And it's because his whole life, because he's an eternal champion, you know, his whole life is combating. He's connected to a sword, which gives him great power, but at the same time kills his own friends. And something that like he can't be without. He's tried to put the sword away, but because he gets kind of like, you know, picked on by all these monsters that are coming after him and deities that come after him, and all of a sudden he's in danger again, and he's got to pick up that sword to defend himself. And no matter how much he wants to stop fighting and, you know, battling with the forces around him, it doesn't matter because he has to constantly fight. He's an eternal champion. His whole destiny, his whole fate is fighting, and that's why he has a sword. And that's why a different eternal champion has like a staff. You know, like this one here on the Mad God's Amulet. This is another version of the Eternal Champion, another Elric. This is book 2 of the Runestaff series. So instead of having a rune sword, he has a rune staff, which is the same thing. It's a weapon. So it's interesting, you know, no matter what he does, no matter what world he's in, he always has to fight. And he's supposed to be like a good guy, not a good guy. Like he's not good, you know, at all. He is good in some ways, but he's like too good for his stature in life. You know what I mean? Like he's supposed to be this like emperor of a really, really like bad, you know, like the Melniboneans are inherently like, if you don't call them evil, they're just like really like mean to people, you know. They have slavery, they're not like particularly care too much about other people and stuff like that. They're just like sort of evil. The thing is that like him as an emperor, he's expected to be evil. He's expected to be an evil emperor because every emperor before him has been evil to some degree, and he doesn't want to be. And what's interesting is that his cousin Erkun, his cousin basically takes the throne. His cousin doesn't like that Elric is good. You know, doesn't like that at all. And that's one of the reasons that Erkun takes the throne, because for one thing, he wants the power for himself, but he uses the good in Elric to convince, you know, the people in the throne room and the people around in the throne, you know, the higher ups in the society, that Elric should be, you know, dethroned, and he should take the throne because he'll be a better emperor. And the thing is, he probably would be a better Melnibonean emperor because he's an evil person, just like every other Melnibone emperor is. And Elric like doesn't even care. Like he doesn't care that he was dethroned. He doesn't care about all the power. He doesn't care about any of that. He never cared about it before. He cared about his cousin, I think it's his cousin, who he just spent time with his cousin and hung out with her. And that's what he liked in life. And he also, he basically tried to learn the Melnibone magic, and he liked that and stuff like that. But then his cousin was taken by Erku, and he just like, I don't know if he did it because just to get back at Elric because he hated him, but he tried to kill Elric a few times, and Elric just never really tried to get rid. Never really tried to get rid of them to the effect that he could have, and he became his biggest enemy and stuff like that. But that's not even like the main part, because when Erkun took the throne, when he was dethroned, he said, you know what? I don't care. You can keep the throne. I'm going to go explore the world, right? He found that like exploring the world is really what he wanted to do. And being the Emperor of Melnibone just kept him in a throne room, sitting on a ruby throne with jewels and servants, and he didn't like it. And it was boring for him. And he was like, oh, we're just going to, he was just going to sit there and stare at the servants who were like trying to amuse him, Instead, he went out into the world. And that is I think one of the things, when I read that, I just liked him right away. Like I liked him as a character. It just made sense. Like, why would anyone want to be stuck in a throne room surrounded by people who are servants, who are just like, like being nice to the king or the emperor because it was their duty to be nice to the emperor. It was their job, right? Not because they wanted to or felt anything about the emperor as a person. It was just their job to do it, So on some hand it was cool, but on another hand it was like fake. And he was like, why is he doing that? So he goes and starts like, he starts to explore all of the other kingdoms and stuff like that. But what happens is, so that's really, really awesome. But then obviously when he goes out, these kingdoms are dangerous. This is a medieval fantasy. And what's interesting is about, the way the Melniboneans is another worldly race of sentient people, basically. But they evolved from dragons, while like people, like humans, evolved from like apes and whatever is the science behind what they're saying evolution is. But basically, they took it as Melniboneans evolved from dragons. So that's why I'm just gonna show you the picture that, that's why they have the look that they have and stuff, because they did evolve from dragons, right? And then the thing is, in order for him to actually explore the world, he's gonna have to basically have some kind of power. And because everyone's just trying to kill him. Everyone is trying to kill him and rob him and take his gold. And, everyone is evil. Everyone is bad in this world. And so he's got this sword. He's got Stormbringer. Now the sword is like 1,000 times more evil than he is. That sword is just like, it is a creature. It is a person. It's like a sentient. It's alive. And that sword, it's like a rune sword. It's got these runes on it and stuff. So I just show you what the picture of the sword is like. This one. As you can see, there's like runes on it. There's runes all over the place. And so this sword keeps him overkill. It keeps him like totally powerful. It keeps him so powerful that no one could defeat him. Deities can't defeat him. Like hugely wizards and other kings and whatever, no one could defeat him because of Stormbringer, because of his sword. But the thing is, he's tied to the sword. It becomes like something that like, and the thing is about that sword is like, without it, he's very weak, and only the sword gives him energy. he has no choice but to fight, because if he wants to stay being emperor of his kingdom, he's got to fight with usurpers and evil cousins and, people that want to dethrone him and whatever. And if he wants to go out and leave the throne and go out into the world, he needs to, he just like needs to fight with everyone trying to rip him off and rob him and kill him and whatever. It makes for an interesting story, but it's this eternal champion, and it makes a great story. And then there's like these two kind of forces in the world, and one is chaos and one is law, and he's on the chaos side. And what's interesting about it, like both the chaos and the law deities that enforce chaos and law are basically evil. None of them, they're like neutral or evil. They're not really good chaos. They're not like good law. They're like evil law and evil chaos. They're deities. They don't care. They're powerful. They're just going to live their powerful lives. And sometimes, Elric will call for his deity to help him. And the deity will just like sometimes help him, sometimes not. Whatever, right? So that's an interesting thing about the world that they come in. Like there's like the law part and the chaos. And the law is always bad law. It's like bad laws, bad, structures, political structures that are bad, things like that. And then chaos is just like lack of political structures, lack of any kind of structure, anarchy, and not in a good way, So I think that like with the whole like philosophy of Elric and that, it's just basically the thing about life where I guess, and it's told because of, you could tell things in fantasy that are a lot truer or ring truer than you can in non-fantasy or like fiction. But it's saying that like there's just no way to not be a eternal champion. Like there's just no way to avoid this part that's a part of person. There's a part of a person. There's just no way to avoid it. Like there's gonna be a confrontation, and there's always gonna be like the things that keep you powerful are also the things that defeat you, because Stormbringer keeps him powerful. His sword keeps him powerful, but defeats him because it kills his friends just because it feels like it on its own. He doesn't like try to like swing it. It just moves on its own, And then like, and also it says a lot about, do you want to like stay in one place and never kind of like just surrounded by what you're familiar with, even if you're like the emperor of it, even if you're like the lead guy of it, woman, whatever of it, right? And if you're like the head of whatever it is, is it better to stay there and like guard yourself from the world, or is it better to go out there and see what's out there and interact with what's there? And when you do go out in the world, there are things that try to like rip you off and kill you and try to like take your money or take whatever it is from you and stuff like that, bandits and stuff. And in order to explore the world, to find what's out there, you have to like go through, you kind of like need, there's just, you can't avoid conflict in life. Like, so everyone's kind of an eternal champion, sort of, because there's like, it's like, there's just no way around it. You might want to, not have like Lord of the Rings, where they don't want their power. They're going to throw the ring out, You might want to not have the power, that destroys things, and not have that power, and not not be connected to that power that destroys things, but, or whatever. But then other like people and other forces will always try to like undermine you, because you want to, you don't want to have that power to protect yourself. It's an interesting thing, because it's not like it's not so easy to say, well, this story means this, and it's not that simple. I think Michael Moorcock is more of an involved thinker, And whereas like with some stories, like with Alejandro Jodorowsky, or like just some stories, it's like they're very, very laid out. They're like, well, I wrote a story because I want to say this, and this story means this. But this story is just like it's a reflection of life, but it's a reflection of life on a very interesting level, because it's like it's very, very close to, you know, what would life actually be like in a fantasy world. Because I feel like the characters in the Elric saga are real people that are in a fantasy world. You know what I mean? It's like if you were in a fantasy world, you would suddenly get attacked by bandits or monsters or, you know, thieves or people trying to, like, if you were an emperor, you would get attacked by usurpers and people that would try to like undermine you. It's like Elric is an eternal champion because he's like, you know, because he has to be. You know, he would not survive if he wasn't an eternal champion. So survival and life to him is just more fighting. It's just more conflict. You know, and he's on the side of chaos, which is probably like in the Elric saga, chaos is probably a better side to be on than law, because the Elric saga gods of law and deities of law, they're like not good law. They're not like law that keeps things good. They're just law that like binds people to situations that they just have to obey and they can't do anything about, which are not positive situations. So chaos gives that that little bit of, you know, lack of people telling you what to do. You know, chaos is basically does not believe that the side of law should like dictate the way things are. But what's interesting, it goes even further, where chaos creates like all entropy. It creates like chaos in physical matter, where things just stop making sense and things are just all over the place. And law, it's like, no, everything means something and this is what it means and stuff like that. It's really, really interesting. And you could take this character and what Michael Moorcock did with Elric is you could take the character and make a lot of different aspects of them, but it is the incarnation of someone that's not only fated to fight, but fated to win, right? The only way to win is to fight to win, right? And if he didn't fight, he would just get killed. And that's the thing, like he doesn't, and after a while, Elric doesn't even care, you know, but something always keeps him going. Like there's always something that, you know, there's always a reason that he does fight, and a lot of it is to overthrow evil. He finds like that's his purpose, you know, to overthrow evil, and that's what brings him a little bit forward, you know, because he's like actually good. Like he really is like a good person in an evil world. And what's interesting is like he's fated to fight with this evil, because otherwise the evil will just kill him. And that would have been the end of the story. And you can't have a story that wouldn't have been a story. You know, so part of it is fantasy, which is cool. It doesn't have, not everything has to mean everything, you know. Something just makes a good fantasy story, you know. But I think that Moorcock could not, you know, tell this story without real meanings about things that he's thinking of at the time, you know. Meanings about, you know, having to be fated to always be in combat. Meanings about like, is it worth it to stay an emperor if you feel like you're trapped by that throne room? It just becomes like, you know, a place that traps you rather than something luxurious or whatever it is. You know, it's a person who is just surrounded by everyone is evil and they're not, and they're good. And but they're not like 100%. They're not really goody. They will like slay people with a sword, you know. And the sword itself is something that just kills people on its own. And that's an interesting thing. What it means is that, like, when it's this kind of power that kind of like you really cannot control. Like, Stormbringer controls Elric more than Elric controls Stormbringer, the sword. He can't control that sword. He needs to wield it in order to do things like, you know, he's called to go on adventures and slay some kind of evil monarch who's, you know, oppressing a bunch of people and whatever. Or maybe there's somebody that he loves, or there's some kind of person that he has to save, or whatever it is, who's like, you know, who's being like captive by some kind of evil person or whatever it is. But you know, but what's interesting is that he has to keep doing it, and it's his fate. Like, he cannot escape conflict. So he's always like, should I fight and do what's right, or do I just want to not and just, and what will happen if I don't? And then he realizes that if he doesn't fight, if he's not the eternal champion, if he doesn't like save people, if he doesn't overthrow monarchs who are like oppressing countries and evil sorcerers, if he doesn't like overthrow them, then they're just going to spread their evil all over the world. And he can't live with that. Like, he can't, it's just wrong. He doesn't want, you know, he doesn't want those evil like monarchs, those evil sorcerers to gain any more power than they already have. He feels like it's his duty to go and slay them and kill them, and with Stormbringer, his sword, because they're evil and they're oppressing people, and they're maybe there's someone that he has to save that another, you know, that will make the world a better place. Like, that's the thing. Like, his sword is the only thing that makes his world a better place, because if he didn't fight, the world just would just be conquered by evil altogether, you know? And if he does, he's an eternal champion. He's always got to fight. He's always got to be in conflict and whatever. But he does it because he feels that, you know, it's the right thing. And, you know, it's like the only thing to do. Like, he doesn't have a choice. And I don't know if that means that Moorcock is saying that sometimes that, like, conflict is sometimes your only choice, you know, or what he's saying with that, you know, but it does make a very, very interesting story. So yeah, so that's like the Elric saga, Elric Of Melnibone, and philosophy. You know, let me know what you guys think, maybe about the story, or like anything about like Moorcock and Eternal Champion, or Elric and philosophy, and whatever it is, or the Elric story, or something you were thinking when I was talking. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in another video. And please like and subscribe to my channel, and check out some other videos. Yeah, I got more videos. Check it out. Later, guys. And yeah, let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe to my channel. Okay, cool. Laters.